Hungarian Folk Tales. The Bear and the Cat. Many, many years ago, in a land far, far away, there lived a bear. And one day, the bear met a cat and said, "Let us work together, cat, and build a house." So the two of them worked together and they built a house in the forest. When the autumn came, the leaves began to fall, and the bear said, "The winter will soon be here. Let us work together, cat, and collect some food." So the two of them bought a bucket, went deep into the forest, and filled the bucket with wild honey. Then they got a second bucket and filled it with fat, and carried the buckets up to the attic. The winter that came was a very bleak one indeed, with plenty of wind, lots of snow, and very cold days. So the bear lay down to go to sleep, while the cat watched over the fire and sat comfy in the warmth. But then the cat slowly became hungry and wondered how it could get out of the house so it could climb up into the attic to eat from the buckets of honey and fat. "Where are you going, cat?" "You will never believe me, but a mouse just came past and invited me to a baptism." "The mouse has just had a baby and says it wants me to be the baby's godfather." "Very well, then you had better go," said the bear. So then the cat sneaked up to the attic and ate a quarter of the honey and a quarter of the fat and sneaked back down again. "Oh, you're home from the baptism. What's the little one's name?" "A quarter." "How about that? I've never heard of a name like that." Time went by and the cat got hungry again. "Hey, cat, where are you going?" "Well, you will never believe me, but another little mouse came by and invited me to another baptism." "Very well, then you had better go." "You're home again soon?" "That's right," said the cat. "And what's the little one's name?" "A half." After a few days, the cat got hungry again and quietly opened the door. "Where are you going, cat?" "You will never believe me, but I've been invited to another baptism. Another baby mouse was born, and I'm to be its godfather." "Very well, then you had better go." "So what's the little one's name?" "Nothing." "Oh my, that's the strangest name of all." When the spring came at last, the bear woke from its winter sleep, thin and hungry as it had not eaten since the autumn. "But everything is fine because we have plenty of honey and fat in the attic. Cat, please fetch some and we'll make delicious pancakes with honey." "Go up to the attic, cat, and fetch the 2 buckets down." "Oh, but I'm so dizzy." So very, very dizzy. And we all know that cats don't get dizzy, don't we? But the cat was pretending. "Very well, I'll go and get it myself," said the bear. So the bear went up to the attic and found both buckets empty. "I'm going to teach that bad cat a lesson. Cat, you ate everything up, and that is why you said a quarter, a half, and nothing." The cat denied the whole thing and said to the bear, Let's make a test. We'll both lie in the sun for a while, and whoever ate the honey and the fat will sweat it out, and then we'll know. So they lay down in the sun, and the cat ran up to the attic and scraped what was left of the fat and the honey from the buckets and smeared it on the bear's fur. Then the bear woke up and looked at its sticky fur and said, "Oh dear, I must have eaten it all. But when did I do it?" When the cat saw the bear, it couldn't stop laughing. And it laughed, and it laughed, and it laughed, and it ran off into the forest. And the poor foolish bear lived unhappily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The king who did not want his daughter to marry. Once upon a time, there lived a king, a very rich king, in a castle. He had a beautiful daughter. He loved her so much that he did not want even to let her leave the castle, lest someone should take her from him. One day, however, the princess begged her father to let her walk out a little. He allowed her to do so, but not for long, so that no harm would come to her. As she was walking through the flowery meadow, she realized that a young man was approaching her. It was the son of the neighboring country's king. Both of them were so good-looking that they fell in love right away. They agreed that the prince would go home and set out at once to call on the girl's father and ask for her hand in marriage. The princess went home and told her father where she had walked and whom she had met. Her father grew terribly angry and nervous that someone might take away his precious daughter. He told his daughter that he'd rather put a curse on her forever than give her to the prince. He sent a messenger to the other king, telling him not to come and ask for the hand of his daughter. But if he still wished to come, he should do so with an army that could defeat him and take his castle. The prince had already set off to the king when the messenger arrived. The king gathered his soldiers and sent them with his son. The army set off. The other king's castle was high up on a hill from where they noticed the approaching army sent by the enemy king. The king called together all his men to defend the castle against the enemy. When the approaching army reached the hill, they sent a messenger to ask the king to give his daughter without further ado. The king sent back a message that he would not do so for anything in the world. They attacked the castle and laid siege to it. Then they noticed that there was no one on the inside fighting them. The lord of the castle said he did not wish his men to die, so anyone who wanted to leave was free to do so. When the army attacked the castle, all the men inside left through underground passages, leaving only the king and his daughter behind. The princess said she would not leave because she was so in love with the prince that there was nothing she wanted more than to be his wife. The father begged her in vain, but she would not leave. Then her father cast a spell on her, turning the princess into 3 types of animals. The spell could only be broken if a young man kissed the 3 animals in turn. Meanwhile, the enemy had managed to make its way into the castle. They searched for the princess but could not find her anywhere. The prince was desperate. He didn't know what to do. He let his men go home and asked them to tell his father that he would not go home until he managed to find the princess and take her with him. He looked for her high and low, but in vain. He went out of the castle and wandered in the forest. He sat down and was thinking what to do when an old woman approached him. "Dear Prince," the old lady said, "I know what your problem is and I also know how to solve it." The old woman was no less than a witch. "Tell me, old lady, I'll give you anything in exchange, but I must know the answer." "The princess will come out of the castle every moonlit night. And whatever shape she comes in, rest assured it is her. You must kiss these creatures 3 times in a row, and then the spell on the princess will be broken." The prince, who was prepared to do anything, waited for nightfall in the hope of seeing the princess. As the moon came up in the sky, he saw a little bunny rabbit hopping in front of the castle. He took a few steps in its direction, but the bunny did not move. He embraced it and kissed it 3 times, and the bunny vanished. No sooner had it disappeared than a big lion walked through the gate of the castle. Although the prince got cold feet, he remembered the old woman's words, so he approached the lion, embraced it and kissed it 3 times, and the lion did him no harm. Then it disappeared too. Hardly had the lion gone when the prince saw the castle surrounded by flames. A 7-headed dragon emerged, spitting fire from all of its mouth and lighting up the nearby forest. The prince took fright. This surely can't be the princess. But the dragon approached him relentlessly, showing him the huge keys in its hands as if to spur him on and say, "Never fear, sweetheart." Then the prince went up to it, embraced it and kissed it 3 times, upon which the dragon turned into the princess. They both rejoiced, and she gave him the keys. "Now I am yours, and with me all the wealth in this castle." They entered the castle, and she showed him all the riches. Luckily, there were 6 horses there, so they put them before a carriage and drove to the prince's father, the king. There they held their wedding right away, yet the bride did not seem very happy. The prince asked her what the problem was. "I can't be happy until my father is here beside me." The prince said to her, "Well, we'll find him somewhere." They didn't have to look for him for too long, as he was already on his way there. He learned that the prince had broken the spell cast on his daughter, so he came to see her. The old man was led to his daughter. They saw each other, embraced, and rejoiced upon finding each other at long last. The old man made his peace with his daughter, and the wedding feast went on and on and on. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Witch. Once upon a time, there lived an old man who had 3 sons. When all 3 were fully grown, they decided to marry and told their father of their wish. "Very well, but one at a time. I want you all to take a walk, and the one who returns with the prettiest flowers will be the first to marry." The 2 elder brothers did not even leave the village, Both of them had a sweetheart, so each of them brought a nice bunch of flowers back to their father. The youngest son, however, had no sweetheart, so he went out of the town to look for flowers. He walked and he walked until he eventually came to a vast forest, in the middle of which he came across an old palace surrounded by a flower garden. Oh, if only I could pick flowers in this beautiful garden. The youngest son was still standing there when a witch appeared in the garden and asked him, "Why are you so sad, my child?" Then the young man told her what his problem was. "If all you need are flowers, come with me and I shall give you some." Then she took him into the garden and picked a bunch of beautiful flowers. As soon as the poor man caught sight of the flowers, he said to his eldest sons, "Well, sons, it will be your younger brother who will marry first, because he has returned with the best blossoms." But the elder brothers complained to their father so bitterly that he eventually agreed to set a second test. "Very well, the second test shall be he who brings back the prettiest kerchief shall be the one to marry first." So the sons went off, the two elder ones to their sweethearts in the village, and the youngest one to the witch in the forest. "What do you need this time, my child?" The youngest son told her, and so the old witch went back into the palace and brought the young man a beautiful gold-trimmed kerchief that bedazzled the boy. The two elder brothers also brought a kerchief each, but the youngest son's was by far the loveliest of the lot. The elder brothers were very upset, and so their father eventually agreed to set a third test. "Very well, go and bring me your sweethearts. He who brings me the loveliest girl shall be the one to marry first." This was easy for the two elder brothers, because they both had sweethearts in the village. But where, oh where, should the youngest brother look for a bride? Who could he take to his father? Should he fetch the old witch who had given him the flowers and the kerchief? So the youngest son set off with his head hung low. He walked into the forest, stopped in front of the palace, and leaned against the fence with a face as sad as the autumn rain. "What's the matter with you, my child?" "Oh, don't even ask me what the matter is. My father told us that the son who took the prettiest sweetheart home would be the first to marry." "Don't hang your head, my child, but come with me to the palace. Here's a fireplace, make a fire. With every flame that flickers up, a witch will appear before your eyes. Fear not and stand bravely there until you see the last and ugliest witch of all that will have a bunch of keys between her teeth. Then you need to snatch the keys, otherwise the rest of the witches will tear you apart. And now the rest is up to you." Saying nothing more, the old witch vanished. The young man made a fire in the fireplace, and as the flames began to grow and crackle, a witch emerged from the flames. The youngest son was so afraid that a shiver of fright ran down his spine. Then a second flame leapt forth, producing a second witch. Then many more witches followed this one. Eventually, the last witch appeared with a bunch of keys between her teeth. The youngest son gathered all his courage and snatched the keys, and, wonder of wonders, the ugly witch turned into a beautiful princess. The youngest son was too surprised to speak. All the witches then vanished from the room and were replaced by a throng of graceful maidens. Then the pretty princess said, "You must be very surprised. I'll have you know that I was the old witch who gave you the flowers and the kerchief. You must have been sent here by God, because I was a princess and a spell was cast on me. Had you not appeared, I would have remained an old witch, and now we shall be together for the rest of our natural days." The poor man was in good spirits and said, "Very well, I will let my elder sons marry too." And that they did, and their younger brother gave them each a house with plenty of land. Then the youngest and most fortunate son took his bride back to the palace, where they lived happily ever after.